The truth finally leaked as multiple NHL insiders have revealed the truth on Artemi Panarin's season thus far and how he feels about being in New York. We're going to break that down, as well as what Chris Drury is planning to do with this player and his future in New York. Elliot Friedman has revealed the truth on that. We're going to break it all down in this episode of Rangers Digest. But before we do all of that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button, as we've noticed 72% of you who watch these videos on the regular are not subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with everything that's happening with the New York Rangers, go down below, hit that free subscribe button, because this channel is built for blue shirt fandom and it's the place to be for all your daily New York Rangers content. But Bret, let's get right into it. We have multiple new reports and we're going to start with the shocking one. We're going to get to his future in a second, but let's talk about the now with Artemi Panarin. And it hasn't been a fantastic season so far for him. Yes, he's putting up some points, but from The Athletic, Panarin has actually admitted to The Athletic, and he's been doing some interviews. He's actually been pretty open so far this season, talking to the media, but he admitted that, there is some uncertainty surrounding, obviously, his future with the Rangers and his contract, and it's actually weighing on him this season. And, like you talked about, and like we all saw yesterday, he's bald again, right? He's bald Panarin again, which is fun. Hopefully he can get back to his bald Panarin ways, because that player was a menace a couple years ago. But he went on to say, I can't say I'm thinking about that in the game, he said, but sometimes I think about it and it could be a factor. Now, I'm sure he's not thinking about it on the bench, but I'm sure day to day this is weighing on him. He doesn't know if he's going to be back in New York next year. You also have this, that they've been talking, there have been negotiations in the off season, him and his agent, obviously with Chris Drury, there have been negotiations in the off season and during this season, but things have stalled at this point. Sounds like the Rangers want to see where they fall in terms of the Eastern Conference landscape. So what do you make of that? Because I don't think the Rangers can be too quick to sign him to a contract, especially with the projections, and we know that he doesn't want to take less than what he's projected to make. I feel like this is pretty crazy to admit that, hey, this is actually weighing on me this season. This is why maybe I'm not performing as well.
Yeah, Darius, Bald Panarin is back. And, Bald Panarin plays with a chip on his shoulder. He takes things personal. And, if we get any type of Bald Panarin that we got from 2023-24, we're going to be in pretty good shape. After that first round series loss to the Devils, we know he shaved his head and he just wanted to change things up. And, it actually turned into results on the ice. So hoping for a similar effect here now. Talking about his contract, saying that it is weighing on him. I do believe the only reason it's weighing on him is because he's off to such a slow start. Even though the free agent class is thinning, he still isn't playing well. He's a half point per game player right now. He understands that if he wants to make the big money that he's looking for, that $12 million AAV type of number, even though the class is thinning, he knows he has to produce. He knows that he can't be a half point per game player and have the gall, have the nerve to demand that type of contract, to demand a type of superstar contract that he demanded back in 2019 when he was in his prime. So yes, it is weighing on him, I'm sure, but if he was off to a sizzling start here, if he was a point per game player, I don't think it would be on his mind at all. The fact that he's off to such a slow, putrid start for the Rangers. I mean, he scored a bunch of points in Montreal, hasn't done much since. 6 straight scoreless games. I mean, you and I have spoken about it. Only 1 goal on home ice. So yeah, it'd be on my mind too, Darius, if I was playing as bad as he was right now.
Definitely, like you brought up, I mean, he's a half a point a game player right now. He's projected to make $10.5 million next year. And if he finishes with 50 or 60 points this year, there is absolutely no world you can give that player that contract. It makes no sense, especially at 34 years old now. It would make absolutely no sense. But to move on to another report that I thought was very interesting, and this is Friedman just, kicking things around and throwing ideas out there as he does, right? But he does have some insight and there are some connections, and I think it's interesting. There's actually quite a few connections here, so we're going to bring it up. And he said on the Ducks, who are, by the way, first place in the Pacific Division, all of a sudden came out of nowhere this year. Obviously, new coach, a couple new players like Chris Kreider. I want to touch on that a little bit as well. But you talk about, Pat Verbeek, excuse me, and going out and doing things, and he's kind of taken some big swings. I'm wondering if a guy like Panarin might make some sense there. Now, Panarin would make sense on most teams, I think, Bret, right? Like at this point, it doesn't really matter what team you are. You could add a scoring winger like that. And yes, he hasn't been performing that well, but we know he still has it in him. And you can see this on Panarin and the Ducks. Who did Panarin break into the league with in the NHL? In Chicago with Joel Quenneville. There's that connection. There's the connection that obviously Chris Drury has Pat Verbeek on speed dial at this point. I mean, they've been making trades like crazy. Jacob Trouba, Chris Kreider trade. For me, if you're making a trade like this, and look, you can see this long term, if you're going to tell me that they're going to bring in one more big time left winger, I could see it. This is from Friedman as well. So all signs are pointing towards the Ducks wanting to make one more move for a scoring winger. Is it an older scoring winger? That could make some sense, but there are some salary cap implications with this, right? So if you look at the team, they have to sign, Leo Carlsson to a new contract. He's a young, budding star. Beckett Seneca is going to need a new contract soon. There's a couple guys, young guys on the team that are going to need new lucrative contracts. So if you're adding Panarin, he's going to be making a lot of money as well, right? You have to re-sign him. So those are things that the Ducks have to consider. And if you're making a trade like this, Brett, and I'm going to throw it over to you for your thoughts in a second on this report, I think, no more Carey Terrence stuff. You need an NHL caliber player back. You need like Mason McTavish back in return if you're making a trade like that. And with the way that Panarin is, playing right now, I don't know if that's possible. So does this make sense?
Yeah, Mason McTavish is a good name to throw out there. I mean, the Rangers need to get quicker. They need to get younger. I know they have some depth up the middle, but look, this is an older team. This is a slower team. They could use, a spark. They could use some youth. They could use some speed. And, the West Coast Rangers, Darius, like we've spoken
Exactly.
about, I mean, Verbeek and Chris Drury seem to have a great relationship. You mentioned the coach that Panarin came into the league with in Chicago. So, it does make some sense. I mean, Chris Kreider is off to an amazing start in Anaheim. He has 9 goals in 9 games. The goal that he scored last night, I mean, the Rangers could use that. The Rangers could use some of those redirects, those deflections. Now, two things can be true, Darius. The trade at the time did make sense. It still
Yep.
is a forward-thinking move, but he has been good for the Ducks this year, and he is healthy. When Chris Kreider is healthy and his mind is right, he is a good player. We're not going to sit here and say that he's not. So yeah, the Ducks are in first place. A player like Panarin going to a first place squad, on a different coast like Chris Kreider, maybe you get rejuvenated a little bit, and maybe it's just getting stale here in New York for Panarin, but the connections are there. You have the coach, you have Chris Kreider, you have Frank Vitrano. So, the Ducks are aggressive. They've been aggressive, and, they certainly have a couple young players, which we'll touch on in another video, go more in depth. But there are some younger players on this Anaheim team that would make some sense on Broadway.
Definitely, right? And I think you have to go younger, but also with some NHL pedigree at this point. Like I said, Carey Terrence looks like he's going to, he's a good prospect, but is he going to make an impact at the NHL level? I think you need a guy that can come in and do that right away. So I think it does make some sense if things continue this way to trade Panarin. Unfortunately, you're probably not going to get as much back for him if he continues on this, streak of not scoring almost at all. So he's got to get going, that's for sure. Not just for the Rangers to, hopefully make the playoffs, but get going to up his trade value if that's the way you want to go as well, to kind of retool on the fly. And like you said, Chris Kreider will still stand by it. The trade made sense at the time. It does. Yes. Does it suck to see him scoring a bunch of goals right now? Not really, because I wish him the best, of course, but the Rangers could use that, but they were relying on some of the younger guys to step up, and they haven't really done that so far this year. But I think it's interesting. Last thing I'll mention here is, if you look at the Ducks lineup, like I said, you have to consider that Panarin wants a lot of money still next year if they were to trade for him. So that's something you have to consider, why his trade value might be a little bit lower. And they have a lot of players when you look at their cap. Yes, they have a lot, and it's going up almost $10 million next summer as well, but they have to re-sign a lot of guys, like I just mentioned, like Carlson, Zellweger, a couple guys, right? They have to get some contracts going there for some of their younger guys. But very interesting idea, and we know the connections there with both coach, GM. It's definitely possible, but I think it depends if the Rangers can get back at least closer to the playoff picture, because things are still tight in the Eastern Conference right now. Anybody can leapfrog anyone. I mean, the defending Stanley Cup champions are in last place, for crying out loud, right? So we'll see how the rest of the season goes, but let us know how you feel in the comments below about Panarin. He's got to get going. Hopefully he does. He's bald Panarin again. That should be fun to watch. And does he end up in Anaheim like a bunch of other Rangers over the course of the last 24 months or so? Let us know how you feel in the comments below. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers.